You're tuned in to Ask the Master Auto Technician. Car questions? Get answers right now. Call 850-763-0555.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah!
All right, welcome back to our second part of our Tuesday morning show. We just had Larry Walters on here for the Fair Tax. I want to talk about on cars right here. This is the time of year where you're going to try your heater. You're going to turn your heater on, and it's either going to work like it's supposed to or it's not going to work like it's supposed to. That's usually the only two things that happen. Either it works like it's supposed to or it doesn't work like it's supposed to. And we're starting to see that since the temperatures dropped a little bit, got down, and well, we got down to the 30s last week, my wife said. Got down to what, 34 you said in Northern Bay County?
That was the weather report from Detlef.
Well, that was a rumor. That was a rumor going around.
Well,
it got down.
He's a master gardener. He keeps those statistics.
Well, he does keep that. He has a great garden too. But we were talking about about how things get a little cold. You turn your heater on, and it doesn't work. And that's when people come in. I mean, people can handle it. In my opinion, they seem they can handle it. The air conditioning doesn't work, but if their heater doesn't work, that is something that really bothers people. They'll roll down windows and tough it out if the air conditioning doesn't work in the summertime. But in the wintertime, if that heater does not work, they want it to work. Well, there's a couple of things that you can do to keep your heater working. One is change your coolant every 2 years, every 30,000 miles. And I got people going, James, my coolant's good for 5 years or 150,000 miles. I said, yeah, in a perfect world it is, but you don't live in a perfect world. You're a severe service driver. You stop and go. You're doing all these things that are considered severe service. And when you're considered a severe service driver, you cut your intervals in half. They say 5 years, 150,000 miles. I tell people every 2.5 years on your antifreeze, or 30,000 miles, and people go, well, that's not half of 150. Trust me, if you change it now, 2.5 years, you won't have to worry about having a clogged up heater core in 5 years. I see that a lot on cars out there. People refuse to change the antifreeze, even though it looks good. If you just look at the color, and say, well, it looks orange, or it looks green, or it looks blue, or it looks red. There's nothing wrong with it. Well, if you put a pH strip in it, you'll find the pH is around 7.5. You'll find that the reserve alkalinity, there is no reserve alkalinity in extended life antifreeze, but you'll see your pH is around 7.5, and you'll see your concentration is not 50-50, and a lot of times it's 60-40. And the reason is because the water has osmosis, has gone through the hose and evaporated out of the system. It will actually go through the hose, wick through the hoses and leave, so you have a higher concentration of antifreeze. And that sounds all good. You say, well, it's not going to have to worry about it freezing. That's true. You don't have to worry about it freezing. What you have to worry about is slime being built up. You end up getting about a 1/16 inch of slime throughout the system. And as it goes through, it starts where the cracks and crannies are in your radiator or your heater core. It starts to build up and restrict the flow. And when it restricts the flow, things don't work as well. Your radiators don't work as well. That's why a radiator stops working as well, because it gets clogged up on the outside as well as the inside from the old neglected antifreeze. The same thing takes place in your heater core. Now, what can you do besides change your coolant on a regular basis? Preventive maintenance is change your coolant. If you'll do that every 2.5 years, you'll be fine. You're not going to have to worry about your heater core clogging up. You'll also not have to worry about your radiator being restricted and dying a premature death. You'll also not have to worry about a lot of things happening on your car that shouldn't happen, like hoses failing, because they all fail from the inside before you notice it. Hoses, you should be able to walk out to your hose and grab them and touch when the car is cool, and they shouldn't feel soft and mushy. They shouldn't also feel hard and crunchy. That's two things that it's kind of hard for me to tell people. What you're looking for is two things. You're making sure the hose feels normal. If you know what a normal hose feels like, if your car is relatively new and you go out there and you squeeze the hoses, that's how a hose is supposed to feel. And if you've done enough of them over the years, you say, okay, that feels normal.
You should have a little resistance,
You got a little resistance, but it shouldn't be so soft and mushy that you go, ooh, that doesn't feel good. And it shouldn't be so hard when you squeeze it, you hear this cracking noise. If you hear this cracking noise, that means those hoses, they're rotten. Those hoses are literally dry rotted from the inside, and it's just a matter of when, not if, they blow. I mean, you're on a borderline. And when they get soft, This just as bad too, because there is no telling when that aneurysm is what I call it. When you feel that soft, the hose feels good except right in the curve. You'll feel it really soft. I call that like an aneurysm fixing to blow. That's going to blow out, and all your coolant's going to go. Same thing happened the other day. I got in my truck, and my truck does more sitting than anything. And I drove it down the road, and I said, well, everything's fine. And I stopped, got out, and I smelled antifreeze. I went, whoop, that's not a good sign. That's not a good, if you smell antifreeze, something's wrong. Popped the hood, and I noticed one of my heater hoses was leaking. And I went, how did I miss that? And I'm the one that's guilty of it. I didn't reach down there and grab my heater hoses like I should when I do my inspection and just squeeze them. I felt a soft spot, and I developed a pinhole leak in one of my heater hoses. Immediately turned around, went back to the shop, got me another hose, put it back on there. My coolant had just recently been exchanged, so all I had to do is replace the coolant with a 50-50 mixture. Now remember, this is a 94 model. This is an older model car that doesn't use the extended life antifreeze, so it has reserve alkalinity. It does have, pH is supposed to be 8 or better. It does. You want to keep it around a 50-50 mix. This is the old green Prestone type antifreeze, also known as inorganic acid technology. That's the old green Prestone antifreeze. Since 1995-96, most cars have gone to what we call organic acid technology, or OAT, or hybrid organic acid technology, or HOAT. And here's another one called polyorganic acid technology. But those are the three ones out there that are mostly used. The HOAT and the OAT are the ones that mainly get used. But they only have a life in your car, honest to goodness. And I know the manufacturer wants to tell you they're good for 5 years or 150,000 miles. If you do that, you'll be doing a lot of engine work when the car is out of warranty. Please change your antifreeze correctly and do it every 2 to 3 years. And for those out there that say, look, I can't afford to go to a shop and have them, take my antifreeze out and do it professionally cleaned. If you can't afford to do that, the best I can recommend is to drain the antifreeze best you can out of the radiator. Drain it out. You don't have to start the car up, don't have to do anything. Take the lower hose off, grab the antifreeze out of it, and then refill it with a 50-50 mixture of the correct antifreeze, and that will at least give you a little bit more of a lease on life. That's not the proper way to do it, but at least it'll get you by for a while till you can get your monies right. But the recommended procedure is to change all of the coolant. That usually means around 4 gallons complete mixture of 50-50 mixture of distilled water and coolant. Of antifreeze to make a coolant. Now, some vehicles out there, they are like some Toyotas and some Hondas, and Volkswagen the same way, Anna Marie, where they're not pre-mixed. I can't remember, but I know
Volkswagen we buy 100%.
Okay, it's 100%, but I know Toyotas and Honda, if I'm not mistaken, they are already pre-mixed. 50-50 mix, and you have to buy them and put them in. And there's 4 gallons you got to run through there. Now people tell me, well, James, my car only holds, if I drain the radiator out, I'm only going to get maybe a gallon in there. Well, why are you saying 4 gallons? Well, you got a gallon in your radiator. You got maybe 2 to 3 gallons in your block. You got another gallon or so in your heater core and your lines. So total throughout the system. And I can pull up on ALLDATA any car out there and see what is the total dry amount that the system holds. Most of them hold between 3 to 5 gallons, depending on what you got. Diesel trucks hold around 6. Some of them hold as much as 9. The 6.7 diesels that Ford has put out in the last few years, those have 2 cooling systems on them. 2 cooling systems, and they hold a total of around 9 gallons, and that has to be changed they recommend every 30,000 miles because it's under such stress, and it's as expensive as those parts are that's being protected by the antifreeze, you want to change the coolant in it. Even my Toyota Prius, it has 2 cooling systems in it. One for the inverter, which is the electric component of it, and one for the engine. And they both have to be exchanged. When on the engine, you exchange it like you normally do. You have the engine at operating temperature, keep the engine running. It completely exchanges it, pushes through the old. In comes the new. You got a complete system. Holds about 3.5 to 4 gallons. Even a little 4-cylinder Toyota to where we get every bit of it out. I've got some people say, I'm not going to pay you for an extra gallon in there. I said, what? I thought you wanted it done right. Well, I do want it run right. So you don't want me to make sure it's completely 100% changed. You want me to cut it off at 3 gallons. That what? Yeah, I want you to cut it off 3 gallons. Okay, suit yourself. If that's what you want to do, that's being penny wise and pound foolish. But if that's what you want to do, fine. But there'll be no warranty that you're not going to have a problem in about a year or two from a radiator or a hose or whatever. Because what you're doing, we're trying to get every bit of that old coolant out of there. Every bit of it. Every dadgum bit of it. And we're trying to make sure we restore it with the right coolant that's designed for the vehicle, so that everything is taken care of. It's like putting in a vitamin pack inside your cooling system in there. It's got all these little things in there to protect the water pump, to lubricate the water pump, to keep things from bouncing against each other and making electrolysis and galvanization and eating things up. And also by changing the antifreeze or the coolant, you're saving it from eating up the plastics that the water goes through. The coolant goes through. The plastic.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of these cars have plastic thermostat housings.
Yes.
And, you know,
that Mini yesterday.
tensioners that
yes.
coolant runs through.
Absolutely. We've seen them, and that's what it ends up doing. It doesn't eat the metal. It eats the plastic. It takes the nylon 6.6 and eats the backbone out of it. When it gets the pH drops below 8, it starts to eat the backbone out of it. It starts to pull that out, and it actually makes it brittle. I've actually gone to radiators that had gotten discolored and actually grabbed it, and I could crush them. They had no strength anymore on the plastic tanks because of steam erosion, one, and the other is the nylon 6.6 taking that backbone out of it. So you have a shell that looks like, it looks fine, but it just crumbles. If you put any pressure on it, it'll just crumble because there's no strength to it. And that's what the extended life antifreeze does. It doesn't eat the metal, it destroys the plastic, like the intake manifold gaskets, the intake manifold, the radiator, the water pump impeller, the gaskets. All these things are plastic, nylon 6.6 with a rubber O-ring around them to keep them in position. Well, you eat the plastic up that holds the O-ring to keep them from leaking, it slips and now you got a water leak. That's usually what happens to the water pumps on modern General Motor products out there. Not that the water pump leaks itself, from the front pulley seal, it leaks from the plastic on the gasket on the water pump where it goes to the block. It gets eaten up, and the only way to correct it is to pull the water pump off. We don't want to pull the old water pump off with 100,000 miles on it and put it back on, just change the gaskets, so you change the water pump as well. Because if you don't do it, it's going to be 6 months and you're probably going to be back to the same thing where the water pump's leaking. But in most cases, what I've seen on water pumps leaking is from the gaskets that go on there. That's what leaked first. And I've had some people that refuse to do anything, and then all of a sudden the water pump starts leaking. Now they got a clogged radiator because they've been putting water into it. And now they've gone from a simple bill to a very expensive bill. So that's why I encourage people, if you're going to do the job, do it right. Hey, this is James Morris. Give us a call at 850-763-0555, but you're going to have to do it tomorrow because this show is over today. Give us a call, 850-763-0555, Monday through Friday from 6 to 6:30 right here on Fox 28. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Bye-bye, everybody.
James Auto Center, we fix it right.